Izakaya, meaning stay drink place in Japanese, began as sake shops that allowed some patrons to open and drink their bottles at the shop, which turned into sharing food together and, of course, gossip. Just think of it like the OG service industry group chat, having shifties together, except with way better snacks and fewer HR violations. Thanks for joining us. You're listening to Who the Fuck Closed Last Night. Today, we talk to Bill Taibe, the mastermind and creative force behind Kawani, a Izakaya-inspired restaurant right here in the heart of Denver. It's the perfect combination of good food, good drinks, and the kind of place you accidentally stay way too long. Hey.
Sweet.
All right.
Well, here we are. Man, Bill, thanks so much for doing this.
Pleasure.
Absolutely. We've been so excited about this one, man. We're with Bill Taibe. This is Who the Fuck Closed Last Night.
Taibe.
Yeah.
Taibe.
Yeah.
Taibe.
I've heard it so many ways. The Taibe. Yeah.
Yeah, first one I was like, is it Taibe? Taibe?
You're like, there's no way.
There's no way. And then we were looking it up, and then I found that video that you did years ago.
Yeah.
But we've been just so excited about this. We had such a good conversation with you, just meeting with you. So we've been excited to dive back in. Guys, Bill owns the Kawani in Denver, also Kawani in Connecticut.
Yep.
Multiple different concepts throughout the years. 3-time James Beard nominee, Chef of the Year multiple times in Connecticut. But I want to start back at the butcher shop, baby.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how you got in the industry.
At the butcher shop. Yeah, I grew up in a small town, Paterson, New York. Both parents kind of moved us out of Queens when I was about 6 or 7 years old. And in the town I lived, there wasn't much happening. I was always, I played lots of sports, baseball, lived in a great community. So as kids, we were always active and outside, always exploring, had no idea. I have 2 parents that are from Queens, New York, right? So exploring the outdoors was never something that was like part of the family conversation, right? It was, of course, go have fun, be outside. So I just always found myself kind of rummaging around, as a younger kid, pulling wild onions out, doing these things. And the reason I do it is for context, is never, ever did I think anything of that, as I look back. Right. But I just remember how much I loved, sort of just picking things that looked edible or just sort of enamored with food. And when I was about 14 years old, labor laws back then probably didn't apply as much as they do now. When I was about 14 years old, we had, again, small town, we had a local butcher shop, which was like kind of our grocery, if you would, 4 aisles. And I started working there, got a job after school. I just wanted to be active, and I kind of liked the idea of having some pocket change and a little bit of money. And, so I would get out of school, I'd walk down to the shop, and work for 3 hours. But really kind of fell in love with this sort of concept of food preparation and food production. Again, didn't think anything of it, but I always say by the time I was like 17 years old, I could break down a deer, from nose to tail. Just thought it was kind of cool, but we're talking 1990, so like food was not a conversation in like what people were doing professionally. And I sure as heck didn't grow up in an environment of food, meaning the town I grew up in, we had the pizza slice shop, or like, Red Lobster was like, if I got good grades on a report card, that's where you go for dinner.
Right.
So, food was never like a huge part of my upbringing. Of course, we had great meals. We'd eat together. My parents worked really hard. But it was, we were just normal American family. And worked in my butcher shop, did that for a couple of years. It was, just really fun. It was a good way I could also be like the boss of my friends when they, I get their jobs. And, after a long Saturday night, who's cleaning the chicken bin on Sunday morning? Going to see who I can make throw up. There was many times where we'd show up to work from the house we were at the night before. So, and it just kind of, it went from there. I think I mentioned earlier to you guys, but I'll say again, I was just an absolutely awful high school student. combination of a few things, but just personally being a total shithead, struggling in school, scholastically, none of it made sense to me. I'd kind of sit in a classroom, my legs were always moving, I was just bouncing around and thinking of something else, and it didn't correlate. And the way they were teaching and the way I needed to learn. So unfortunately, what happened, as we went through high school, as I was going through high school, sort of academic ineligibility had was a new thing they were putting in place in Carmel High School.
Right.
Just so happens when I was a sophomore, and unfortunately I think I might have been the first one that was academically ineligible from the baseball team. And instead of being what I would expect from my children, pull your shit together and figure it out, you love playing baseball, you love being on teams, I just went the complete opposite direction. And it just became total anti-establishment. Fuck this, I don't fit in, I don't need baseball, and one thing leads to the next, and you're just not a great kid, and you're doing stupid shit. So I really had no idea what direction I was going into with my life, and I can't imagine my parents had any idea. I mean, they just were hoping I stayed out of jail. God bless them. I mean, but ultimately, I think it was after I graduated high school, remarkably, and I thought I was going to be just going to law enforcement. I have a proud Irish family on my mother's side. Her brothers, a good bit of them were all in the police force in Queens and throughout New York. My uncle, my father's younger brother, was an officer as well, a cop in Queens. So it was just very natural for our Irish Italian family. And I was like, okay. But then I realized I don't want to be a cop. So what am I doing? Why do I want to do that? So fast forward, I was fortunate enough to just get a job at a friend's uncle's butcher shop when I was about 19 years old. I was pretending to go to community college after high school. Didn't really enrolled, never really went, but I did fall in love with this sort of concept of working with food. And I took a job at Brown Bag of Armonk, which was a really great catering company at the time. And was sort of relegated to the back prep room, peeling potatoes and doing all the things that beginners do. Right. But quickly, for whatever reason, sort of the chef Joe at the time sort of recognized what I was doing, and maybe the speed, the pace, just having a good time doing whatever it was, sort of identified me and really pulled me aside one day and was like, what's your plan? What are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know. Shit. So he was like, you're really good at this. You should really look into culinary school. There's a career here. You can do this as a career. And I remember, and I was just having a blast catering, and you're 19 years old, you're doing these enormous weddings, and
right,
it's just taking 6-7 filet mignons home, whatever it was, they didn't use. You take them home, all my buddies were happy. So it was such a great experience, and it's so understandable why it's so intoxicating at a young age to get into the restaurant industry, right? Absolutely. It's just, there's so much freedom, but then there's control and everyone working together, teamwork. It took me back to what I missed with my academic ineligibility, that team environment, right? I stopped playing baseball and I was craving it, just where am I? I just didn't have a direction, and immediately getting into food got me back on the team, and I could excel.
That's actually one of the bartenders at Candlelight mentioned that people who played sports early on usually are very successful in this industry. I think it's also a combination of that and the ADD-ness of I need to consolidate my actions and figure out how to do this efficiently and work as a team. It's really helpful if you've already experienced that and love that. Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more. I have, in my years of sort of mentoring and we call in our company leadership roles and just trying to help people be better at what they do, a lot of the time I will examine that in my conversations with folks, hey, did you play sports when you were younger? Because if you didn't, it doesn't mean you can't be successful at this. Right. But it's an intangible that you sort of have picked up. It's just there's a natural understanding of working with a team and being accountable to other people. And if you didn't experience that before, it's a little harder to kind of pick up later. So that catering job was pretty amazing and special, and thinking that in the beginning it was obviously for money. I needed to survive. I was living with a bunch of friends in a townhouse up in Poughkeepsie, and it somehow went from survival to a future, and that's what was really cool about it. So I ended up going to culinary school, and I went home, talked to my parents, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to go to culinary school, and they're like, okay, like
this again,
again. But again, I just can't say it enough. Like the patience and the way they handled me at that time and the opportunities they gave me, obviously, are everything I am today. Right. So, I constantly think back on that. Like, just as easily, my parents could have said, you know what? No, like, you've had a million chances. You haven't proven anything to us. Mm-hmm. You've been trouble from the beginning. But instead, they were like, okay, you got to make this work. My father drove me down. We went to school in Baltimore. I found a culinary school in the back of, like, Art Culinaire magazine or something. Yeah. I didn't want to go to CIA because I lived up in Poughkeepsie at the time. And I just knew that if I stayed in the area with my buddies, who are still some of my best friends, and all successful in their own right now, but if we stayed together, I was not going to be focused the way I needed to be. So I went off to Baltimore, went to school, first time ever being away from home, really, like lived in an apartment down the road, but, being away. And it was just a great experience, and as soon as I got there, I knew I was in the right place.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It's interesting that because you having already worked in the industry in multiple facets between the butcher shop, catering, having already developed the pace and the consolidation of actions and then going to culinary school seems like a really good way to do it.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I've met people, having been in the acting, it's similar to people who go to film school. If you go to film school but you've never been a PA where you're just throwing away trash and getting coffee orders, you don't understand the industry. And if you walk in thinking that you know it all, everybody's just going to roll their eyes.
That's right.
So it seems like there's some people that come out of culinary school that have never worked in the industry and think like, cool, now I can open a restaurant.
Yep.
You having that experience beforehand seems like that's a huge help.
And what an amazing confidence boost too. Like to go to school, as said earlier, like never had success at school.
Sure.
So then to go off to a learning center and actually being prepared and feeling like, holy cow, I get this. And
you already knew
maybe I didn't do as well in the math class, but but man, I killed soup, stocks, and sauces. Like and you're right. It's confidence, and even now I've taken on it. I'm sure we'll talk more about this at some point, but I take such great pride now in mentorship, in particular back home in Connecticut, just because I have, a real strong foundation there, and I've had restaurant group there for ever. But it really, we have a great connection and relationship with the local high school, Westport High School back in Connecticut, and Weston High School, and they have really legitimate culinary programs. And, we're kind of tapped into it, and I've said to, Chef Gans or Allie, Chef Grace, when you identify some, a potential star, I want to make sure that you're sending them to us, just, for a small intern, summer job, whatever it is, because, if you hear someone say, hey, I'm going to culinary school, I want to go to culinary school, send them to us, and I'll make sure they're making the right decision. I want them to, because again, it's expensive and it's a big commitment. And so that's always been something that we take very seriously, is sort of sending these folks, these kids, off into the right direction, letting them know what they're getting involved in. Yeah. It's not TV Food Network.
Right. Yeah, totally.
It's not. So come and peel potatoes, come and shave broccoli for hours and hours and hours for the broccoli salad, and then you'll decide, do you want to do this? Because this is what the job is. It's repetition, baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's, what's great, because obviously Chad and I being bartenders, a lot of what we've gotten to talk about is, there's those same sort of origins for kind of everyone in restaurants, like front and back house, bartenders, it's cooks, chefs, even like managers. Like it's always this sort of outcast, kind of like someone who fell into it. I sometimes jokingly say you don't end up doing this because everything went right for you in your life.
Yeah, I love that.
But the stark difference in how far and intense and disciplined, not to downplay my own craft, but just when it comes to kitchens, and when it comes to the culinary, and it comes to just how much information and how like a world of culture and influence there is, and like you said, you have to, you just have to start from the bottom and work your way up, and it still does have that essence of something that's sort of that old school. You see it in some like industries like tattooing and stuff where there's apprenticeships and that on the job training, like you theoretically someone could just like buy a set of knives and walk into a bunch of kitchens, and eventually is probably going to find someone that's like, here's an apron, there's a cutting board.
That's right.
Don't cut yourself.
That's exactly it. But it is. It's a field of, it's an apprenticeship field. It is. It's what I love so much about it. It's like the amount of effort and time and how you can continuously get better at it. Now, I'm sure, the majority of work out there, you can continuously get better at it. I don't have experience in that, but I do know that it's easy to become an obsessive in this industry. It's and especially now, there's information is so real and immediate all the time. So God forbid you wake up, you turn on Instagram, and you're like, wait, where's this restaurant in Paris? What are they doing? It's just. But there's also on the other side of it, and I think you were kind of alluding to this, is like you can be a quote unquote immediate, expert just by your phone, at 23 years old, and you spend enough time watching Instagram and some of these guys that are on there, cooking and pounding meat and do whatever they're doing. It's sort of I don't know, just a false integrity, so to speak, right? Like,
no, it's really nice because the guests can consume that information and come in with that. The home chef that it's just such a different animal. I mean, obviously people knowing obscure ingredients and stuff can be helpful to open their minds, but that sort of, I guess sort of the question I had for you is what type of, if you were giving someone advice, like someone that was trying to get into cooking and culinary, or someone that's already in it and doesn't, maybe they're in like a suburb and they're like I remember this guy that I know, I worked in an Olive Garden with him, and he was serving, and I was like, what do you want to do, Rob? And one night we were having beers, and he was like, I want to cook, I want to be a chef. I was like, why are you're like, a 20-minute drive from the closest city, and there's real chefs there. This is around Birmingham, where I'm from. And I was like, and he was just kind of like, oh yeah. But he's like, I don't know what to do. So like when there's those people that are kind of in that wayward part of their life, like how would you, or what do you do? Because you mentioned you bring people in from school and stuff. What's that sort of way that you kind of get in and like find who you think is really going to be able to be successful? And
and from experience, my first job, I went to culinary school. I had the opportunity. Part of the reason I chose the school, slightly off topic, but part of the reason why I chose the school I did in Baltimore is a small little private school, but it also had a campus in Ireland. So it was, got to study abroad a little bit, got to see some other parts of the world. Everyone's like Ireland, but it was a sort of a French-run country, and now Dublin's like one of the greatest food cities in the world. But so it's just a great experience to get to be elsewhere and see another part of the world. But when I came out of culinary school, I finished, came back from Europe, went into New York City, did an internship in New York, worked for Larry Forgione for a couple of years, and then sort of a few other stints, and then realized like I need to get out of New York. I need to get out of the city. I just couldn't afford to be there. Still wasn't the adult I needed to be. I was definitely now had a career path, but I was still a dummy. Right. So I spent my money on dumb stuff all the time, and I don't know. I think I'm still doing that. But anyway, it's definitely a weakness. But the point is, my first job out of New York City, because at the time, now I'm sort of having an opportunity. I live in either Putnam County or Westchester County, which are the counties that sort of run up to New York City. And I knew, Westchester County is sort of an affluent suburb outside of Manhattan, probably a good place. I'm sure they have some restaurants. I have no knowledge of this, but I opened up the Zagat guide, if you guys remember. Right? Before there were phones, before there was Yelp and Open Table and all this other shit, there was a book that every year Nina and Tim Zagat, went around and collected information from diners, and that's how you got your reviews. And man, that was like amazing. And I bought the Zagat guide, or somehow found Izakaya and went into the highest rated restaurant in the book. That's all I cared about. I was going right to the highest one. It's 30 is the highest rating, and the highest rating was La Petière in Rye, New York. It was a French restaurant. It was a 28 rating. I put together, I'm sure my father or somebody in my family helped me. I put together a resume, and I drove, and walked into La Petière and asked for the chef and handed my resume and said, there's not a lot on this, but I really want to work here. This is everything I've read. This is the best restaurant that I could work at, and this is where I want to be. And that's, he took me on, and I took a job. It was the hardest job I've ever had in my life. Yeah. It was brutal, just beyond brutal. Not because I'm a little full of myself. I kind of had I excelled at culinary school. Everything feels good, and then boy, and even like as an internship, you're getting beat up. You're creating relationships. Your first real cooking job, past internships, past that stuff, where you're like, now you're really accountable for yourself, and you're not just a student and like you're supposed to do dumb shit. Don't do it at a super high end French restaurant. and, because believe me, they don't have patience for stupid people.
Right.
So, and rightfully so. And it was the hardest job I've ever had, one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. But to your point, I walked in and I made it happen. So I use that. Like, I have that experience. I tell that story to young cooks. I just think, I want to make sure that our industry is protected. And what I mean by that is it's not frowned upon or looked at sort of a place where just dysfunctional dopes end up, right? Like, I'm so proud to be in this industry. I'm telling you my past and how maybe it sort of created the journey to get where I am, but by no means do I look at this as a fallback option. As soon as I realized that this was a possibility, I was like, this is unbelievable. So I'm so proud of it, but I also want people, younger folks to realize how it alters your life. It's different, mom and dad might have, the classic, 40, I don't even know if those exist anymore, but, a 9 to 5, let's say. I don't think anyone works 9 to 5 anymore, but, you get the idea. That's not you, dude. Right. You're not home on Saturday afternoon. You don't get to go to, cousin Stacy's birthday. Sorry, So understand that and make sure the beautiful thing now too about the industry is there's so many avenues to go. It's not always just service.
Totally.
But I do feel you need to be in restaurants before you get involved in any other food. I do. I just think, it sets a tone and creates a teamwork and a sense of accountability like no other experience you could have. So, to me, the real advice is get in it, and if you're thinking this is something I want to do. And I mean, God, I have so many restaurant friends and chef friends. I can't think of one that's going to close the door on some high school, guy or gal that is like, hey, I'm interested in this industry.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, sure, apron's over there. Can you use a knife? I just want to make sure you're not going to cut your finger off. And then, I think we all just we crave to have somebody that cares about it as much as we can and to be able to mold them and give them a great path. That's, so anybody that's listening that is thinking about that, identify your favorite restaurant and go to it, and just say, hey, and it may mean you got to work a couple days for free, and don't expect to be fully compensated for it, but that's okay too. I don't know if labor laws allow that anymore, but you get the idea. Just, you gotta, it's an apprenticeship and that means it's your time to learn. And don't be afraid to learn though. That breaks my heart that somebody wants to be a chef, is in the industry on the other side of it, and it's kind of I don't know how to get there. That's it doesn't need to be that difficult. I think your answer was great. You have a major city right down the road.
Yeah.
Pick a restaurant, man.
Oh yeah. And I think we're all hungry. I mean, I think we will always take somebody that's hungry to learn over somebody that thinks they know everything.
Oh man,
I know
every day.
Training bartenders at the restaurants I've opened, if I have somebody that thinks that they know everything and they don't want any advice on how to do it our way, I know that they're not going to last, and I don't want anything to do with them.
That's right.
But give me a Starbucks barista who's never bartended a day in their life, who's hungry for knowledge.
Yep.
Oh, that's right. Man. And if you show up the initiative of walking into the door and wanting to talk to somebody and actually showing your face, God, give me 100 of those.
That's what I'm saying. More of that.
Yeah.
More of
yeah,
that. So
yeah.
if anything comes out of the podcast, more of that.
Yes.
Come to us. Like,
Exactly.
We love it.
Yeah.
It's a really prideful career. It's and I just that, and there's just, like I said before we were talking, there's just different lanes to it, and if you don't organize your thoughts and think about where you really want to go or what you want to study or the type of cuisine you want to be in, you could kind of just get lost and left out of it. But it doesn't have to be that hard.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible.
There's people that are willing to help for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your mentorships that kind of led you to, before you were a restaurant owner, led you to that ability.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't have a lot of mentors.
Really?
Yeah. And that, I think, has been a little bit of the reason why I have gray hair at such a young age. But I like I said, I graduated culinary school. I went to go work in New York City. I worked under Larry Forgione's restaurants. I saw Larry a few times. But there's some really great chefs in there, really good cooks. American Place and the Grill Room, like, were top of the top restaurants at the time. I had really, for the purpose of La Pentiere, I have kind of a cool story. So La Pentiere was that French restaurant, right? So I'm working there. Like I said, I'm working hard. It is hard. I mean, not only am I in an environment of food that is so foreign and crazy to me and technical. Everything is said in French. No one speaks English. If anyone spoke another language other than French, it was Spanish. Yeah. And thankfully, as I was like, commis to like a chef de partie fish, she was English speaking, and I would just always like, please just keep me up. What do I need? What do I need next? Because it's French brigade, right? So it's like kind of 2 cooks per station. And just, I'd have a senior cook above me, and just all night long, keep me up, don't let me fall behind, and I think it was about after 9 or 10 months, there was an opportunity at another restaurant in Westchester County called Two Moons, which was a Southwestern restaurant. And at the time, Bobby Flay was like the shit in New York, in the Northeast, right? Yeah. Bolo, Mesa Grill, all of them. And I just fucking love the guy's food. And it was so crazy to me. It was just vibrant and grilling and chilling and all that stuff, right? So I remember going to Bernard Bourgeois, who was the chef of La Pâtissière at the time, after a Saturday night service, and I went in. Of course, I'm like, timid and nervous, and I'm like, Chef, I've never given notice before. Chef, I'm going to turn in my 2-week notice. This has been the greatest experience, but I've gotten an opportunity I'm really excited about. I'm going to go into an American restaurant. I just want to learn this cuisine. And I mean, listen to nothing I said, looked at me, he goes, so you are quitting? And I said, well, I'm going to give you my notice. And of course, if you need more than that, I'm happy to as well. I'm sure they'll understand. And I'm just stammering and stuttering, and he's like, you are a quitter. You will be nothing. This is not the kind of person that I need in my restaurant. You need to leave now. Jesus. I was like, okay. So,
all right.
Cool. So end up going, but I can't remember now. Did I have a 2-week break? Did I start at Two Moons the next, that week, whatever? So I go to Two Moons, and that stuck with me. And, and of course, I'm now thinking to myself, did I just lose 9-10 months of like a great experience, a potential relationship, all this stuff? Well, I did. So I go work at Two Moons. And this will go, it all ties together, the mentorship thing. At Two Moons, we had a great chef there, Dave Thomas. I loved him. I just adored him. He was great. I started as a cook. Quick couple months into it, he's like, hey, you want to take on a sous chef role here? Sure. What does that mean? Okay. You're just kind of like the lead cook. It wasn't a big enough store that like sous chef did anything more than like was the next guy that the chef would just beat on. Sure. Couple months into that, after sous chef, the owners came to me and they had said, you're the guy. Like, we can see it. Everyone's following you. You have an energy in this kitchen. We want you to be the chef. We're going to let Dave go. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm 22 and a half, 23 years old. I'm like, fuck. So, you don't have to worry about anything. We're going to do, we'll do payroll. We'll do the ordering. Like, all you're going to do is be you. Great. So I took it, spent every dollar I had every Monday at one of Bobby Flay's restaurants. I remember I'd come back and do like blue corn crusted, sea scallops with papaya seed vinaigrette and like eat it, and then figure out how to make it. I'd steal all the menus. Yeah. I was essentially cooking his food, trying to figure out how to do it, But it was great. We put some food together. So I'm a chef now. I'm 23 years old. Two Moons, a year and a half into it, a year and a half into my tenure as chef, the owners come to me and they said, hey, we're selling this store. They had another restaurant in another town. We'd like you to go over to the other restaurant. I was like, I think I'm going to look for some other experience. I still wanted to be a cook. I was too young to be a chef. I really had a great experience, and the people that I work for, Mara and Dennis at Two Moons, were just the most righteous, amazing, loving, helpful people. But I knew that my next job was not in a chef position. My next job was in a cook position.
Yeah.
I needed to keep learning how to cook. So I go to a restaurant in Greenwich, Connecticut, Wildfire. I start as a cook. Shortly into it, Rick Jacobson was a chef. Rick worked with David Boulay for many years in New York. Rick was as technical as a chef as I've ever worked with. And God, I learned everything. And I just loved the job so much. And then he shortly put me into an AM sous chef position. So I had that 9 to 5 job kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Never got out of 5, but cool enough.
Of course. Yeah.
Always got there at 9 or
Yeah, like 8. But I got to do all the braises and all the stocks and really learn the intricacies of production, right? Like how to organize, and the cooks at night would leave prep sheets and I'd have my prep team, and it just was awesome. Shortly into that job, the owners came to me, and I'm not kidding, 4 or 5 months into it, and they're like, "You're the guy. It's not Rick. It's you.
Yeah,
we know. It's you. We want you to be the chef." I'm now 24 years old at this point. I'm like, I'm not. Guys, I love this. Please don't fire Rick. I swear to God. We're at a coffee shop, and they're like, we're in Greenwich, Connecticut. They're like, there's a Saab dealership down the road. Go pick a car you want. We're buying you a new Saab. This is how much you're making. You're doing this. You're the chef of this restaurant. And I was like, okay. Did it. intense restaurant. And it was my first New York Times review that I got in there, which I got a very good, which is a 3-star review. Magazines are now writing about me because it was a really high-profile restaurant in Greenwich, Connecticut. Yeah. I got no fucking idea what I'm doing. I'm managing people that are 30-some-odd years old. I'm 24. And I remember a breaking point for me of I need to figure myself out was just a really stressful service one day. Things were falling apart, and we had an open kitchen, and I took a fucking Robocoup and I threw it across the kitchen into a tile wall. Tile shattered, Robocoup shattered. It's a $1,400 machine. I could have killed someone. These things are 20 pounds, whatever. Yeah. And I just remember being something has to stop. I want to be a fucking cook. I literally want to cook. I don't want to be in charge. These guys not only made me the chef, but after that, the partnership split. Mm-hmm. And now they're and by the way, you're the general manager too. Here's $1,000. Go to Banana Republic and go buy some clothes so you can have your chef coat on during the day, and then you'll work the floor at night. I did all of it because I figured the experiences were great, and I was kind of caught up in it, and personally knew that I'm going to get a lot out of this. God, it's stressful. I can't imagine. 24-year-old kid should not be this stressed, should not work the way I'm working, the intensity was so high. Mm-hmm. So they ended up splitting that restaurant. It became the first Barcelona.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, the second bar, it was Barcelona number 2, but those groups are involved.
Right.
I left, and I did the same thing I did before, and I will circle back to Bernard. I did the same thing I did before. A gentleman named Nicola Zonghi was opening a restaurant. He was a really well-known chef in Long Island. Him and his father were legends in Long Island. Mm-hmm. High-end Italian cuisine. He had a restaurant in Westport, Connecticut for a short time, closed it up, but I had known of him. He was this mystical figure to me. He was opening a restaurant in Stamford, Connecticut, which is all sort of in that vicinity. Greenwich, Stamford, Westport, it's all in Fairfield County. Did the same thing. Walked over. I was like, hey, chef, I want to work here. He was like, you were the chef of Two Moons. You were the chef of Wildfire. I have a cook's position here. I'm like, great, $14 an hour, whatever you want. I was I got a new car before. I was making way more money than I needed to at 24 years old.
Sure.
And he was like, I've got to pay you line cook money. I'm like, great, I'm happy to be here. All good. Do it. Shortly into a sous chef position, we ended up getting an excellent in the New York Times, which is the highest rating you can get. I was proud to be the kind of his executive sous CDC during this time. Everything's back. Now I'm learning, so on and so forth. From that job, I was offered another position in Stamford to open another restaurant. So now at this point, I feel like I worked for Nicola for 2 years. I started to get my thing. I opened another restaurant. Fast forward, to the Bernard situation. So I'm skipping restaurants now. There's so many crazy stories intertwined, but but back to the mentorship. I opened my own, I opened this restaurant for people. That then leads to me opening one of my own restaurants. Terrible partnership in that one. We should talk about this later. This is when I think I told you when my partner stole everything from me.
Oh yeah.
But to the Bernard situation, I own a restaurant. Fast forward now 15 years, 12 years, 15 years. Bernard was the guy, the chef that told me that I'll never amount to nothing, that I'm a quitter on this. I've now created sort of a reputation for myself. I am a very well-to-do, well-established chef, cook in Fairfield County. People open restaurants, they want to come to me to open the it was great. I worked really hard.
Yeah.
So I had my own restaurant called Le Farm. Was my first restaurant that I had in Westport, Connecticut. 36 seats. I had sort of collected some of my favorite people 3 years, and we opened this great restaurant. Yeah. It's unbelievable. And one day, another chef buddy of mine, Tim Labont, texts me and says, "Hey, I'm coming into dinner tonight, and I don't know if you know Bernard, but I'm bringing Bernard into dinner tonight." I have not seen Bernard since that time. Yeah. So they come into dinner. Obviously, there isn't a carrot that went on a plate that I didn't personally peel. Right. I mean, nobody touched anything. Yeah. They have their meal. I know it's just killer. We were doing some fun food. The night's over, small little restaurant. They're finishing up. They're at the front table 50. They're having their drinks. Their dining room's empty, and they kind of make their way up because Bernard wants to meet the chef. It's one of the better meals he's ever had. So it was just really great. So this goes back to the mentorship. And I remember standing there, and I'm just kind of waiting, and I'm playing it cool. And Tim's like, "Chef, this is Bernard. Bernard, this is Bill Taibe." Great. He's like, "Chef, my God, where are you from? Where did you learn how to cook? This is amazing. This is so fun." And his wife is there, Sarah. And I said, "Chef, can I tell you something funny?" And I go back and I kind of tell him that story. Yeah. And I'm like, I worked there 9-10 months. I'm like, and the day I gave you my notice, you told me I would amount to nothing. I was a quitter. And I said, if I could tell you that stuck with me. There's no mentor that could have had a bigger impact on me than someone telling me that I will never amount to nothing. Yeah, and that, I questioned everything about that. I think literally drove me. And I told him the story, and his wife turns and punches him and says, "I told you were a fucking asshole. You're so mean to people." And it just was this great thing, you know. And we kind of celebrated, had a couple of drinks together, and then get to casually see each other now and again. They've kind of retired and since retired and closed up their restaurants or whatever. But just a tremendous restaurateur, Bernard and his wife Sarah were. Yeah. But a full circle moment of mentorship. Yeah. Where I was just this is my moment now. Yeah. Let's talk about it.
No, but it's great because especially with TV shows and everything. Obviously, celebrity chefs, so much of that is people find it entertaining or people will criticize it, the asshole chef, that really stereotypical, throwing something against a tile wall kind of. That's what I've even heard people refer to it, and obviously we don't want to be toxic people. Probably shouldn't. Be the worst version of ourselves with people, but I feel like that doesn't get highlighted a lot I've experienced it at times, and I'm sure a lot of people who've just spent any real time in the industry and been at a place with a chef on a bad night or something where those moments where they are intense, where they are saying, that's super mean, right? To tell you. And, but with it plays so well into what we're talking about with it being an apprenticeship and everything. He actually put you in a mindset that really helped you become
transformative.
Well, and so, and I'm sure if you go older and older chefs, they probably have similar stories. Mm-hmm. Maybe they had someone doing it to them for years, just beating them down. But that's why there's that prestige, and that's why you have a culture of New York Times, giving ratings and things because of those things that have to happen to push you to realize your own potential.
That's right.
Because we all do that. We hit those walls, and something has to break to get us to that next level continuously.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah, it's it's obviously changed a lot, and so much for the better.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Nobody's going to debate that. I have had many, many years operating at just a an unrealistic stress level. You know, I had children young. My first son, I was 26 years old when I had. So, you know, I think you're especially, we're talking, you know, again, let's just say 15, 16, 17, whatever it was, you know, you don't have the information that's available now. You're constantly searching for the new idea.
Right.
You're constantly, you know, trying to take people that might not have a complete skill set yet and get them to operate at a high level, because it's all real time, right? Like, we don't have the opportunity to sit you at a table, send you stuff, or be like, oh wait, we don't like how this is today, you don't get this. You know, like, it's real time. We're on a show, right? There's an expectation level, and I preach it. Nothing is more important to me than the customers, our guests, feeling like the perceived value is like higher than their expectation, right? Folks have taken the time out of their day, the money out of their wallets to spend time with us. There's so many options. Like, there's nothing more real or important to me, you know, and I've always held that so close that, you know, the expectation of us is so high, you know, sure, like, is it the end of the world that a fucking chicken's overdone or something's too salty? No.
Right.
But in that moment it is, right?
Yeah, totally.
It is. I don't know any other way to justify it. Like, it's just not fair to the customer if we start accepting that things are kind of okay if they're not great.
Right.
And then what does that mean? Well, it creates a really high stressful environment. It, you know, puts a lot of people on edge in the kitchen. It's a really, that's the toxicity of the industry, because you know, what changes that is confidence, education, understanding, know-how, organization, right? And as you become older, more mature, just more evolved, like, I have been able to change my way because my confidence, my knowledge, and my confidence level is so much higher. The majority of the time when I'm throwing Robokus or plates or everything else, it had nothing to do with you, the cook. Maybe you did something stupid, but it was me. You know, it was my image I was concerned about. That's all I cared about. I didn't care that you messed something up. It was like, oh my God, what are people going to think of me now? And fuck. Like,
Totally.
So, it's a real thing, you know, and I so admire. I know that I am a gazillion times better at it now, and I do everything I can to lead through education and inspiration. We definitely want to hold our team to a very high standard. I think it's my job to hold you to a high standard, because I also take great pride in the fact that you've worked with us, and you know, and you know, I want you to go out into the world. I want you to stay with us forever, but I want you to go out into the world, if so, like a better chef or a better cook or a better server or a better bartender or whatever it is, you know, because you worked within us. So I take all that really serious, and now you know, I'm able to manage it a little better because I just have a better tool set too. You know, I can handle situations better now than I could when I'm 27 years old. Like,
man,
barely know how to cook, but I'm, you know, leading a team of people.
Yeah, you know, the best advice when I was managing recently, the best advice I ever got was a manager just asked me a question: what's your first priority? The food, your guests, or your employees? And we kind of discussed it, and she brought it back. She was like, it's your employees. If you train your employees well, if you treat them well, if you're taking care of your employees, it's going to spread out to where the food is awesome.
Can't agree more.
You know, the guests are taken care of. But that's your number one priority, because we're a business of people.
Yeah.
And our people are super important to impress the people in our dining room.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
I want to take it back to the La Farm. When was that? Like 2010 around?
La Farm was
2010.
2010.
So that's
2009.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's like kind of the time in America where people were paying attention more to like farm and table places and where the product was coming.
The farm to table thing drove me crazy.
Yes.
Farm to fork.
Yeah, dude. So you're starting like
whatever. Everything's got a tag, but believe me, I live that stuff. And we were not allowed to use those words in my restaurant. I switched it at that time to relationship cuisine, meaning we knew exactly who was growing all our food. This farm to fork thing and farm to table, just whatever. It's like fusion.
It's like everything grows on a farm, right? Like it grows on a farm.
We exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, eat something that didn't come from a farm. You know, so I wouldn't do it. But
you're really impressing me at that point. It's like, none of this is farmed.
So we were. That was it, and it was sprouting up. You know, we probably should give California a little bit of credit. I mean, California's been doing that stuff forever, but it took a very long time because they had the resources to do it, right? They have the farmland, they have the farmers are built in, just this coastal sort of cuisines, whatever. So the rest of us took time to figure out how to do it. And I was just very, very lucky at that time. I really started, before La Farm, I had the opportunity to open a restaurant for folks called Napa and Company. And it was a big deal. And they did a lot to try to get me to open that restaurant. Now, prior to that restaurant was my situation that I mentioned earlier, where I owned my own restaurant.
Right.
So it all kind of, this will tie together. But I owned a restaurant called Relish Food and Wine. I was a young hotshot chef. This is when I was about 28 years old. I was on top of the culinary world, like in my world. I had a therapist tell me no one gives a shit, but I still like to think that people cared about what I was doing.
Yeah.
So, I was top of the world. There was a gentleman that had a restaurant in South Norwalk, Connecticut, which at the time was just like where you needed to be to have a restaurant, and in Connecticut, in Fairfield County. And he had given me an opportunity. He calls me up. He kind of had this like bad concept that just didn't do well. It was the bamboo. It was with Joey Pantoliano, actually, from The Sopranos. Oh, wow. Funny enough, was his partner. And something happened. They're suing each other. This guy calls me up, and he says, "Hey, I've heard all about you. I have this space, I have a lease, I have everything. If you could raise a couple bucks and whatever you want to turn it into, we'll go halvesies on it, but this is your space. I'm bringing you the lease and the space and the equipment and everything else. So little lipstick on a pig, raised a couple bucks from family and friends and anywhere we could get it. And we created Relish Food and Wine. And Relish was a wild, immediate success. Excellent in the New York Times, youngest chef in the state of Connecticut to ever get an excellent in the Times, big deal. I mean, transformative restaurant as far as I'm concerned. And about 2.5 years into it, we knew that my said partner had some financial problems from past experiences. Had no understanding of the type of problems he had. And one day I got a phone call, and I was up with my wife and kids, and we're up in Fairfield and about 25 minutes away at my house, and I get a phone call from a friend of mine that was down in the neighborhood early because he had another shop. He says, "Bill, something's weird. Something weird's going on. What do you guys do? Are you moving?" He just didn't feel right to him. I go, "We told me," he goes, "there's a U-Haul truck the back of Relish right now, and there's just people taking equipment out and whatever." Fuck. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah. So I literally brush my teeth. I run. I'm like, my wife doesn't know. I'm running down. I get down. By the time I get down there, everything's gone. Truck's gone. Restaurant is empty. There's water a foot deep in the basement because they pulled the pipes out. They took all the copper pipes. They stole when I tell you, dead empty space. Yeah. I run to the police department. I tell them. Luckily for me, my ex-partner was very good friends with the sergeant, one of the sergeants in Norwalk. So they treated me like a piece of shit. They're like, "Oh yeah," it was like they were almost prepared for this. Well, who is it? 50-50? Yeah, okay. It's like a divorce. Does she own the couch or do you own the couch? This is civil stuff. I'm like, just stop the fucking truck. It's either going to Bridgeport or it's going down to the Bronx. Right. Stop it, and then we don't have to go through civil disputes. At this point, I was just manic. Yeah. And fast forward, ended up losing everything, ended up years of just court, civil, spending money we didn't have, just buried us, really buried us. And at that point, I was I was done. I was riding high, and I didn't understand sort of the potential for this type of negative impact on your life, being in this business. So I took longer than I should have, but I definitely wallowed, and my wife's like, "You need to get your shit together and support your family." But I was I couldn't get out of my own way. I was just fuck, what am I doing now? And so I went and helped a friend in South Norwalk who had an Italian restaurant. He wanted to get a good review. I did the whole thing for him, bring the New York Times in, he gets a great review. A month later, he's like, "I don't want an Italian restaurant." I create a new concept for him, Burger Bar, which at the time, this is 15, 16 years ago, burgers and red wine. That's all I want to do. This is pre-Shake Shack. Yeah. I'm like, everybody's going to want burgers, and let's just do really good wine list and burgers and beer, and that's it. Keep it fucking simple. We called it Burger Bar. I had a woman calling me that was opening Napa and Company, and she kept saying, this restaurant in Stanford, Napa and Company, "Hey, I'm opening this restaurant." I knew who she was because she had some successful restaurants. "I'm opening this restaurant. I want you to be a chef." I'm like, "Nope, I'm done. I'm not doing fine dining anymore. I'm not doing full service restaurants. I'm fully committed to Burger Bar." We hadn't opened Burger Bar yet. We were in the like building process. And finally, it was like a Saturday afternoon. I'll never forget it. She says to me, hey, just come and have a glass of wine with me. Just come see the space. You don't even have to take the job. Just see the space. 2 hours later, I come home. 2.5 hours later, I come home. I say to my wife, I'm like, I'm opening a restaurant in Stanford. Everything they were doing at Napa and Company it just immediately like reinvigorated me. You know, Bill, you can buy what you want to buy. We're going to use farmers. We're going to have it was a 2-part restaurant, meaning we had a full dining room, full, you know, let's say 60-seat dining room. Seemed like a gazillion, might even be bigger, probably 80 seats. But then the other half was a market, that I got to procure and program.
Yeah.
So unbelievable cheeses and prepared foods and all this stuff, and just a really big job. And I couldn't turn it away. I'm like, this is nuts. So that really, for me, I ended up taking that job. I ended up turning back to my buddy who had Burger Bar right before we opened. I said, I'm sorry. Whatever percentage I was getting for doing this, just take it. It's yours. Everything's yours. I apologize. Obviously, it wasn't the best separation, but I was like, I have to go do this. So I did Napa and Company, and that really was the start for me of really focusing on, because now what I realized, I would always want to buy the best ingredients, but I didn't have access to them at Relish.
Sure.
I didn't know, just like young cooks, I didn't know how to get to a farm. I was so busy like owning a restaurant and focusing on cooking that I wasn't thinking about like where I got my tomatoes from, and I felt like what I was getting was good, right? So coming from Baldor, whatever, So Napa and Company gave me the opportunity. They said to me, we want you to go out and like change food here. So that's where I remember called up a couple farmers. Annie Farrell, who is one of my favorite people in the world at the time, one of the best farmers in the country, was sort of consulting, operating, and running this farm in Wilton, Connecticut called Millstone Farm, and they were just up and coming. They were just starting. A very wealthy family was behind it. And I remember driving up there and saying to Annie, "Hey, I'm just overconfident. Hey, I want to buy stuff from you." And have no idea how a farm works. And we're talking. She's like, "Tell me about it." I tell her everything, and she's like, "Okay, well, here, let me put your first order together for you." And she gives me like 3 pounds of mixed lettuces and like a bag of carrots. She's like, "There you go." And I'm like, what do I do here? She's like, well, we have to put this food somewhere too. Like, we don't just grow for you.
Right.
You have to earn your place in this. So it's really cool. And that immediately was like, I could do this, Yeah. I spent every day, every single morning at Millstone Farm. We'd drive up there, Urban Oaks Organic Farm from New Britain, Connecticut. Like, all I wanted to do now, I became obsessed with like learning how these people grew food, what they could grow, getting seed books in the winter and picking the seeds of the things I wanted. It was like this obsession. And that really, my 2.5 years at Napa and Company, which then led me to being able to open La Farm.
Yeah.
I went back and, okay, I'm going to do this again. Partnership structures were very different, and there's a little more protection in place. But that really was the catalyst for me. Somebody else giving me the opportunity to say, "Go do it." It's expensive, right? And like, I give them a lot of credit because it was a big restaurant, a busy restaurant, and food cost, especially when you're figuring out how to work with the ingredients I was working with. I mean, I was buying half sides of cattle. And literally hanging into the walk-in. Do you know how much money you're putting out for a half a side of cattle?
Right.
And it's hanging there. And now I'm working through the primals, and we're cutting and we're grinding. We're doing our burger grinds and stuff. Like, you don't run 25% food costs when you're doing that shit. It's closer to 40. So, I was able to really do it, knock on wood, on someone else's dime, so to speak. But it was a successful restaurant. That really then got me to La Farm, which was my tiny little 36-seat restaurant. We had 4 refrigerator doors, no walk-ins, and that's where every single morning I was driving up to one of our farms, filling my car with produce, and going about the day. And it was later we'd meet and we'd say what we're going to do and who's doing what, and we'd pass out. And then by responsibilities, by 3 o'clock, we all worked within 75 square feet, but we'd check back in with each other, and then ultimately manager would come over and say, okay, what's your menu changes today? Obviously some items would stay where your menu changes today, and I would just say things, and that's how the descriptions on my menus are the way they are. Tuna, sesame, premium soy. There could be 15 other ingredients in there, but because I never had the completed dish by the time they were printing menus, so it was always like, I know this is the dish.
Right.
Now, I don't have to, I never add anything else. So it gave me room to put even the first one up. and just be like, okay, as long as I had tuna, soy, and whatever, I could do that. But I could add all these other little pieces to it, and I was developing the dish as people were sitting in the restaurant, like constantly changing it, tweaking it. Wait, what do we put? Did we do this? Someone give me this. Let's put that. This is gonna be really good. And that's how we were cooking.
Yeah,
it was really wild.
That's like jazz.
It was very, very cool.
That's good. Cool.
We had done that, and then shortly after that, I opened the Welk, which was my oyster bar in Connecticut, and then into Colony and so on and so forth. But it was such an important time.
Yeah. I love that concept of actually building relationships with the people that are providing the ingredients for your dishes. I mean, there's not to shit on them. Look, man, there are places that are big enough, and they're pumping out so much food. They've got 30 of the same concept, so they're going to go with Cisco because it's cheap and cost effective.
Yep.
But there's no relationship there. I was having a conversation with a fellow employee, and we were like, a lot of places you go, you're basically getting the same ingredients that at every other restaurant.
That's right.
So having that's just so special.
Yeah.
Because then you actually have more of a relationship.
That's right.
With the food.
Yep.
Which goes to your guests.
Yeah.
That's just incredible.
Yeah. It's a lot more buy-in. And even, with the cooks, COVID, for me back east, like again, I have at this point, right? So pre-COVID, COVID, even, I didn't have anything in Denver. So like my experiences are all back east, right? So we spent so much time pre-COVID creating food systems in Fairfield County, Connecticut. Me, some other local farmers, the Westport Farmers Market, Lori Cochran-Dougal from the Farmers, like just multiple chefs, Dina Brewster from the Hickories, all these different people. Like we actually, there was a small group of us that was just hell-bent on because I would spend all this time with these farmers, and you start to realize intimately how hard it is to be a farmer. Like, I'm sorry, but shit, man, you know what I mean? Like the weather, the soil, the vegetables, the bugs, the grubs, the rain, the no rain, too much rain, fucking chefs that like put their orders in 12 hours too late or forget to put an order in or screaming because they need, like, it's just terrible, like hard work. Yeah. And man, every one of them I worked with were there like with a purpose, and it was so beyond, like all of those things were just commonplace to them, and I was like, God, how do you handle this? I'm throwing Robokus across the wall, and you're like, a whole entire row of kale just got eaten by grubs,
right?
You know what I mean? And your margins are already like this. So I just became so intertwined with their struggle, which was our struggle, which was like, we can do this, like we can make this so much better. And we actually were working on creating restaurant-supported agriculture systems. There was a two-year process where we created a website, myself and a few other folks, a website. This had no value to me directly, no monetary value to me directly. The value was helping the farmers that I loved just be more sustainable, more productive, have more output, make more money so they could survive, because I was so concerned that it can't be me and two other people supporting these farmers, right? Like you can't make enough money. So we're doing everything you can. We created an organization where you could, you go on the website every Monday, you put your order in, and all your produce got delivered to one of my restaurants on my side patio from all the different farmers, and you just had to come pick it up there.
Wow.
We did all the work for you. People were buying in, we were doing it, it was great, and then COVID hit and just blew everything the fuck up. So, we are now still to this point, there's a really strong community, but the farmers have reshifted, priorities change, labor's different, obviously. So that real amazing time we had is very different now. But with that being said, it doesn't mean it's lost. We actually just had an amazing event. My dear friend, as I mentioned earlier, Lori Cochran-Dougal, who's the executive director of the Westport Farmers Market, which is easily the best farmers market in the state of Connecticut, one of the best in the country, is really great. And we just put together, and I'm on the board. So she was really pressing and saying, the last couple of years hasn't felt the same with chef interaction. We have new chefs in the community. Again, like the COVID excuse is kind of reigning supreme. Oh yeah, whatever. I don't know. Everybody just like paused and went back to old way.
Right.
So we put together a couple Mondays ago our farmer chef mixer, which is what we had done the last couple of years. Unfortunately, I've been here so much that we hadn't done it previously. But we get 70 people there, farmers, chefs, all local, just reintroducing each other. Guys, fucking team, like we're the team,
Yeah.
So that was so exciting to me, and it felt like 5 years ago, and I just sitting there with some of the chefs and the new chefs and the old chefs, and everybody just came out of it like, God, what, this is what it's about, like these are people so like-minded. And there's nothing better, you guys know this, than like sitting and commiserating with people that do what you do.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
It's the best. It's literally the
Misery
best.
loves company. So you get that out of a mixer as well.
Yeah.
So how did you, as far as, clearly, you've put all this time and effort and, love and care into this community where you're from, and then you end up out here in Denver, more than 1,000 miles away.
1,800.
So, 1,800. More than 1,000.
More than 26-hour
almost
car
2,000.
ride.
Yeah.
It's a 26-hour car ride.
Which definitely the connections that you've developed over the career is just suddenly you're just a new kid in town
Doing it all over.
Was that the excitement? Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know what it was, man. Like, my life has changed drastically over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
In most cases for the better. In some cases not for the better. I've had a partnership separation since, in January. I had a restaurant group that I created 12 and a half years ago, 13 years ago, which, started with, really the group, let's just say the partnership started after La Farm. So La Farm, when I opened the Welk, I brought someone else in as a sort of small working partner. Mm-hmm. And we created, the Welk and Kawani and so on and so forth, and Chesapeake and Don Memo. And then I needed a change, and I just felt like the partnership wasn't as productive as it needed to be anymore. And I also felt like slightly overwhelmed, like now that we've made this connection to come out to Denver. The Denver thing was lots of, and I say pressure, again, this goes back to the therapist, Bill, you over-exaggerate, no one gives a shit, but lots of pressure to do the Kawani concept. Right. People fucking love this concept. Like, and I hate even that I call it a concept, but it's just the way to compartment. But people love it. Like, there's something warm about it. It's different. It's kind of understandable, but still like, wait, what are we doing? It's like transformative. You walk in. So
the translation is like
Izakaya?
city drink. Is that
Izakaya?
Yeah, or Kawani. Yeah, Izakaya.
Kawani. No, Kawani. Definition of Kawani is, it's got a few, but in the dialect that I tend to think that we should be using, really means to be near the river.
Okay.
So we're on the river. But it could also go for like could mean the passage and so on and so forth. So it's got a lot of different meanings depending on the context of what you said, but really the meaning is to be near the river. And near, and Kawa is the river, the water. Gotcha. So Kawani in Westport is on the Saugatuck River. So it just, the name first was Dazupabu, which I even forget what it means now, but it was some sort of pub, and some of our vendors still have Dazupabu on our invoices, DBA, Kawani, because that's how we filled out the cap. Yeah. I changed the name like 3 days into us opening. I was like, I don't like Dazupabu, like Kawani, so I do that a lot. I opened the Welk without a name. Like, we opened the restaurant the first 2 weeks, there was no name. It was just a new restaurant that Bill Taibe opened without a name.
Yeah. You're a real down to the wire guy.
Yeah,
the dishes are ready.
Inspiration too.
Wait for that. It's like the writing the paper before the.
Exactly. That's the problem. It didn't work in school. It works in my life.
Yeah,
I created a life that I could be fucking weird.
Yeah.
In 1990 in high school, I graduated in 94. Like, in high school, they weren't into weird people. Like, fucking do your work and get out of here. So, unfortunately, it took a while before ADD was like the cool thing. So,
No, I was saying,
I was gonna say, I lost my point.
You've ended up in Denver,
and
you're just in this new scene, and obviously, this whole podcast, we're exploring and, finding how cool we find Denver to be, and how, I personally feel,
it's at its moment where it's like it's starting to get that identity, and
So excited.
the good days are still to come.
Yeah.
Not that I'm sure there haven't been great days in the past, but
Yeah.
especially with cuisine.
Yep. Totally agree.
It's heyday is on the rise.
So that was the Denver thing. It was, the Kawani conversation was happening more and more. And at the time, I was operating the Welk, Oyster Bar, Jessup Hall, which was sort of I sold La Farm to a chef friend who's got now some great restaurants. It just felt, it was small, and I wasn't at it as much, so I felt like, okay, that was a time and place thing. It was me in the kitchen, as I said earlier, and once I felt like I wasn't that anymore, I sold La Farm to another chef friend that was looking for a similar opportunity. So at the Welk, and then we opened Kawani, and then we opened Jessup Hall, which is kind of like the rebirth of La Farm, the sort of high-end American tavern. And then we changed that to Mexican during COVID. But like really, the conversation about Kawani, like, hey, you should do more of these, you should do more of these. And there's some obvious places in Connecticut that you would do maybe your second iteration of a concept of a store. I felt like we were in Westport, Connecticut, and it still to this day is the best food town in the state of Connecticut. There's some really good ones now, but I'm pridefully hold on to Westport. So there was nothing close in the area, in the vicinity that I thought I wanted to operate. The next areas would have been like an hour and a half away, hour and 20, go up to Hartford or West Hartford, some areas that I was like, do I really want to drive to West Hartford every day? So we started to identify other cities, other places, and ultimately it came down to a quality life decision. I did not want to be in the Northeast. I was born and raised in New York, Connecticut. I needed something different. Both my boys were going off to college. One of them, we were able to sort of coerce him to go up to CU Boulder, where he is now. My other son was down south at Alabama. So it was like, okay, this is my time. I'd worked from the time, as I mentioned, I was running kitchens at 23. So I kind of felt like it's my time to explore a little bit, and we had agreed to open in Denver, and it really was because of the mountains. I had been in Colorado a handful of times skiing, obviously, never through Denver other than the airport, and my first trip to Denver to come out and explore, I knew immediately, what I saw was, because, obviously did some research and went to some restaurants, and what I saw was a vibrant restaurant scene that wasn't completely there yet. Meaning, and what I say by that is it's not full. Right? Like, there's a lot of room here for folks to come in and do good. And we're seeing it now. I mean, forget it. It's like this whole, I was just at the Michelin event on Monday. There's some really talented people in this city. Yeah. So, which is really cool, right? So what I saw was Denver reminded me so much of Westport, Connecticut 15 years ago, where everyone's like, oh, don't go there. It's just Italian restaurants. It's like the old trattorias, mom and pop shops, whatever, which are delicious, but like there was nothing new. No one was pushing the envelope. I looked, and people tried to dissuade me from going to Westport. When I opened La Farm, what I saw was an opportunity. I saw an affluent group of people that ate out a lot, and I said, it's up to me. Like, I'm not going to use past, references like, oh, that this place has been here and it went out of business after 10 years. Well, that's them. So if I give good food, I'm going to be okay. Like, that's what people want. And just focus on your guests, focus on your team, all those things. So took the same sort of mentality here in Denver. I saw a sort of some space for us, and I just did it, and like fucking crazy. And I think back to that time, there was just a lot. There's just so many intricacies to it and partnerships and whatever else. But like, we really came out here 1,800 miles across the country with nobody. I mean, my team, the group of people, everything that we created together over a 15, 16, 18-year period was all back that way. So, came out, we had, one of my favorite people, Lupita, moved out, and then my partner came out, and then we bring our director of ops back and forth, and I took a cook from Connecticut who's working with you at Altenio, Tomoya.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Tomo came out from Connecticut. So, but we did it, and it was just wild. It was the crazy experience, and I'm like, and to your point, I don't know why I needed that, like, to do. I loved that nobody knew me, and I knew that I didn't have sort of past experience. I felt like it was just getting a little tight back home. I was involved in everything. I was the president of the Westport Farmers Market. I was the vice chair of the Connecticut Restaurant Association. I was on the events chair of the Downtown Merchants Association. All these different things, and like they were all great and also meaningful and purposeful. But I just felt like, God, like everywhere I went, everything I did, I felt like was a part of my work, right?
It kind of mirrors the experience you were having getting shunted into being a sous chef and executive chef, and it's almost like you just being like, I want to cook again.
I want to go back. I want to do it again.
Pulled away, and you just keep wanting to just go back and just cook again. Sort of situations.
Yeah, and I don't know what that weird thing is in me that likes that, but it's not easy. It is pretty crazy. But I also look, like I said, I think so much of my Denver move was feeling like I missed. At my younger age, my 20s, would have the opportunity to travel, explore, see other parts of the world. Like I just got so quickly immersed into the industry, and then quickly met my wife, quickly had children. Like I was a full-blown adult by like 27 years old with 2 kids and, restaurants. I'm like, fuck, so, and that's all I focused on, and so this gave me an opportunity to do something kind of wild and different and completely outside of my comfort zone. And we did it, and
And I need to mention, you didn't just dip your toe in. I read that you signed a 20-year lease. Like, it was like, let's go.
All our leases, 10 with 5-year options, 2 of them. We go long. Well, for anybody that's thinking about doing restaurants, do the same, because really, at the end of the day, as much as you think, your beautiful tables and your equipment, as soon as you open the fucking door, it's like a card, like 5 cents on the dollar. Right. The only thing of real value is a good lease. So my feeling is, I get locked into I lock into these leases, but I also lock into these leases, right? So it's a valuable part of your business if you have a good lease, an advantageous lease. So I definitely, the last thing I want to do is 3 years from now be like renegotiating a lease and thinking to myself, do I want to do this after you build this? So we've always done long leases. Because we're
Believe
here.
In yourself,
we're here.
Exactly.
Let's do it, man. And Denver's just it's it's so much better than I could have imagined. And I always say, I got really high expectations of everything I do. I expect everything I do to be like, not just me, but every experience to be like, maybe this is the experience. This is going to blow my mind. My wife even says sometimes, just chill out. It's okay. Not everything is going to be groundbreaking. But so with that said, I came here and I was like, okay, we're going to work hard. This is going to be great. But God, are we going to be okay? And we came here and just this community we're in is unbelievable. We found this great building. It just all lined up to be really good. And now it's like I have a restaurant across the country, and thankfully we have what I think is a really great team, a really great leadership team. We've gone through some leadership changes over the 2 years.
Sure.
And some of them great and good relationships, bad, but it's just constantly trying to be better. And now what I really want to get here in Colony is to start redeveloping or starting our own sort of foundation of who we are now, and build a culture, right? It's everything's happened so fast here for us. We'll be 2 years the end of October, and it's gangbusters. It's you don't have a lot of time to sit back and appreciate it, but also to sit back and focus on the little things, the day-to-day minutia. It's we just got to keep moving. And it's, so now for me is that's what I'm focused on. I feel really good about leadership in both locations. I am now focused. I am 2 restaurants less as of January, so I don't have the Welk or Don Memo anymore, which is great. Definitely gives me some free time. So my focuses are different now, is what do we want to do with this? Where does this go? Does it go anywhere? Or am I just good having a restaurant in the mountains and back at the ocean? Right. It's pretty cool.
Right. So, I got a couple of questions. First, I want you to expand on this. This is from our previous conversation, because I've quoted you to other people based off that conversation, where you said, your business is built in a restaurant. Your business is built on what you do Tuesday and Sunday, where you build that culture, where you build those regulars. Yeah. Could you expand upon that? I think that's just such a cool concept.
Yeah. Well, I think it's it goes back to what we were talking about before. Priority number 1 in your restaurant, right? Yeah, it's your team. It has to be. It has to be your team, and all of that comes with education. But man, really, 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 really close to your team is the customers.
Absolutely.
Because without customers, you don't have a team, right? So
Yeah.
it's like they sort of just overlap each other pretty seamlessly in terms of priority, in terms of importance. So, it was so important to me to try to recreate here what we did in Westport, which create sort of a community-driven restaurant. Meaning, when we first started looking, we were looking in Boulder. I thought we were opening in Boulder. Went and I was like, this is great. My first time in Boulder. What a beautiful place. Like, amazing. But who's here? And everyone's like, oh, it's amazing. The tourism's great. And I'm like, and then, who works here? Those things. And now I think like Boulder's definitely a place I'm interested. Mm-hmm. But immediately I knew Boulder would be a second or third location potentially for us. I wanted to come to the city. Mm-hmm. Like I wanted to be in Denver. I wanted to like really integrate with the community. And then everybody else could kind of maybe get to know who we are. And then we could start to like do some fun stuff outside. So finding this, we started looking, then we went to Rhino, and and everyone's talking about the tourism, the baseball games, and I'm like, I don't know how to sell, and please, I'm not trying to say tourists don't come to Colony, we love you, right. But right. I don't know how to build a business based on solely tourism, meaning like one ins and out.
Absolutely.
Right? I want people that, we want a community of people that like rely on us and hold us accountable to a level of consistency. So like taking care of those Tuesday night people, those Sunday night people, those Wednesday night people, that's so important. Friday, Saturday, like if your restaurant isn't busy on Friday, Saturday, I don't know if you should have a restaurant.
Right, yeah.
You might want to think about it. And not to say that those folks aren't really, really important, but in the industry, those nights are supposed to be busy, right? Like we're ready for those.
Absolutely.
It's like, how do you create an environment, a space, a place that people on a Tuesday night where they don't have to go out to dinner, maybe there's less to celebrate. Like, how do you get them to say, hey, we're in on Tuesday, we're on Wednesday, or like Sundays, right? Like Sunday to me, I don't know. I might have been out, and I give folks so much credit. Like, I probably have gone out to eat on a Sunday night like 6 times in my life. Sure. Because I'm like, it's such an important day to me. Football, kids, whatever. Yeah. Like, I'm home. I'm not thinking restaurants. Right. But man, I imagine like everybody thinks the way I do, and then I'm like, but there's a lot of people that want to come to dinner Sunday. Let's not make that like the off night. That should not get your B team, quote unquote. Like, yeah, right. And like that would always. There's a weird mentality about that, or there used to be, or some folks still have it of like, oh, we'll put our best on the weekends because that's our busiest nights. Mm-hmm. Well. Yeah, what about the folks on Tuesday night? Like that to me has to be your best team. We talk about that a lot here and back home, when doing scheduling. Well, I'm always saying, who's our Tuesday team? Who's our Sunday team? Right, those are the folks. Those are I want the killers. I want the ones.
Anyone that's been in in restaurants that were like, when you're busy and you're rolling on Friday nights, like maybe a step gets dropped here and there, mm-hmm. or a cocktail needs to get remade, a dish has to get refired, or whatever. But like, you get those hardcore everyone's fucking up on Tuesday or so it's like it's like everyone, especially if it's a particularly slow night, all night, and then of course you get that like 30 minutes where it goes crazy, and that's just like everyone's fighting that mindset of this is just my like throwaway shift, especially for front of house, like people that are driven by the energy, right? But that's like, I've always enjoyed working those nights because that's like we're kind of the rubber meets the road of that. Like this is when you can overcome these barriers that typically are presented to restaurants.
That's right. Yeah. And these are the customers that are literally, they're the make or break customer. These are the people that, and you'll get the same folks potentially on Tuesday that come Saturday. But again, the expectation from what maybe those people are looking for are a little different. You go out on a Saturday night, you're expecting like people standing on top of each other, like just crazy chaos. Tuesday night, like what a great surprise if you walk into a restaurant, then where the environment is strong and the staff is really happy to see you, and like you get the same sort of. And I just feel like you need to turn it on even more on those nights.
Because that person, they were walking, and for some reason that Tuesday they're walking that Tuesday for some reason, and
they're like, whoa, what's happening?
And then if that's probably part of their routine. So
I'm not great with excuses. I refuse to make excuses for us. We are so far from perfect. And there's a lot that we need to work on within the group. From me down. and just always being better and like constantly training and teaching and all that stuff. But, at the end of the day, it all does come down to, I think we said it earlier when we're talking about like apprenticeships. There's nothing that is more recognized by a customer, I believe it, than when somebody approaches the table and they have like a positive energy. Their personality comes through. They're excited. I ate at Safta last night. I don't care what anybody says to me. It's the best restaurant in Denver. I eat there all the time. Yeah. I love it. And I was just really happy because last night I took my son. I just love it for good food. And we sat and our waitress came over and she's like, so I just want to let you guys know that we were able to retain our Michelin recognition. We're super proud of that. Wow. And I just thought that like set such a great tone. I was like, I was there Monday night. I spent time with Alon. But her first words to me were how proud she was of her team. Like set the whole tone for the night,
Absolutely.
And I was like, good for you. Like, and I said to her, I'm like, keep saying that because that like, it just resonates, and like, we don't have to do this. Like, you don't have to go to dinner. Like, we're so fortunate that people are willing to spend their money to go out and, invest in us. It's essentially what they do, right? So the last thing I'm going to do is make an excuse for why we didn't, like, operate at a high level. Yeah. That's not fair. And I'm just not in for making excuses, So what happened? How do we fix it? Do we have the right team in place? Are we educating them properly? And it's a lot of words. It's like,
absolutely. Sure.
Yeah,
but it does, like you said, it comes down to that vibe. I mean, for me as a bartender, one of my favorite things is like when I'm in the middle of a shift and I look and that there's a bar full of regulars that knew that Chad works on Thursday mornings.
Yeah, it's cool.
And it's a cool feeling. I had a regular visiting Denver from Dallas. I hadn't seen this guy in 12 years.
Oh, wow.
And he, like, when he was in Denver, he was like, where are you working? I want to be at your bar.
That's
I want
great.
to sit there.
Yeah.
What a incredible feeling.
Yeah.
And like what that vibe that it's infectious to people. And it makes the business grow.
You have impact on people,
Exactly.
And there's small impacts. Let's not pretend that what we do is like really that important, in the grand scheme of things, but it is in a sense where we get people out of their headspace. Mm-hmm. We sort of, we try to do everything we can to eliminate what's happening around us, the world, the news, the chaos, the craziness, all the scaries.
Absolutely.
And for 2 hours, like, it's our job to let people come into our space and just let them forget everything, like transform them, and do not create a stressful situation for them. That's for me. That's the rule.
Absolutely.
Like, just make it easier on the guests so they could just forget about whatever they want to forget about, or maybe they just want to come celebrate, whatever it is. But whatever the motive is, let's just make sure that we're able to sort of to do that, to offer that to them.
Yeah.
And then they go about their way, they go their life, and we do it again, And then the greatest thing is, to your point, is when you realize you start building up the people, the folks that are like, I really like that last experience. I'm going to go do that again. And I'm going to do that again. And then they're the people that are sitting here Wednesday night,
Yep.
At the bar, or, that's the reward, right?
Absolutely.
That's exactly why we do it. So,
That's feeling, man. And the culture you've built as well is just so impressive of constantly educating and, like you said, mentoring and having apprentice. People want to stay at restaurants that they feel like they're growing.
Yeah.
That they're actually achieving something beyond just dropping off plates, taking orders and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I really, it's so important. It's sort of top of mind right now, and probably topic number one in the company. Mm-hmm. I've been sitting on my hands a little bit this summer back in Connecticut, enjoying my house and my dogs and my wife, and just being back east, and come back and forth a little bit. I'm really here full time in the winter, in ski season. But that's like, I always say, wherever the dogs are, I'm home. So we drive the dogs out in the winter. This is where I live in the winter, and then from here I go somewhere. I go to Connecticut. In the summer I'm in Connecticut, and I come here. But like, home base is where the dogs are. But, so this summer, I'm like, what am I going to focus on? Don't do anything stupid. You went from 5 restaurants down to 3. You have time, like, clear your brain. Mm-hmm. Don't just do something for the sake of doing it. Don't start another concept. As we spoke, like, I can do that. At one point, I had 5 restaurants with 4 different concepts.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy. But, for me, it was like, what am I going to focus on that's not just like finding another brick and mortar and throwing another concept out? And really, I'm trying to, I want to find better language on how to get our team, our leadership team, to understand what hospitality means to me. And, my group has changed a lot. That's what I'm saying. Like, this past January, working partner on his own now, director of operations has moved on. Like, culturally, we are such a different group than we were, even a year ago, in terms of just the pieces we had in place. And I'm rebuilding everything, and I'm in the best way. I miss a lot of what we were able to accomplish, but on the other hand, I look at it and say, okay, now I could do it again. But I have it in Connecticut, I have it here. So it's like I said earlier, it's lots of words, and I can talk about this stuff all day long. As long as, but the hard part of what we do is getting everyone else to understand it and to believe it, right? I've been writing hospitality guides. We had meetings back east. Now we're doing it here next week. We're going to have a sort of a leadership meeting of what hospitality means to me. So you hear it from me, like these are my words. Let's not assume, let's not just think Bill thinks it's this, or I don't, even what maybe someone else's interpretation of hospitality. I want them to hear it from my mouth, and I want us all to agree on how then we transfer that message to everybody else. And I think we could be better at that. And that's kind of where my focus is right now, is because I do think like sustainability of restaurants all comes down to service and hospitality. Absolutely. Good team building skills and service. Good or bad food, good or bad drinks. Honestly, that stuff gets forgotten easier than bad service. A bad experience. You do not want to create an awkward situation for people in your space. Like, I'll go to the grave with that.
Totally. Yeah.
You can overcook a burger. You know how many overcooked burgers I've eaten?
Right.
Whatever,
Yeah,
man.
totally.
They're not that bad.
I'm probably misquoting it, but essentially that thing where people they'll forget what you said and what you wore and where you were at, but that people don't forget how you made them feel.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, cultivating these spaces and cultivating our community, both like within and outside the restaurants, is obviously part of what me and Chad are really excited to be a part of. And I think Denver's just got such a celebrating this Monday, just being around that with awards and media coverage and everything, which is its own thing and is a whole other hour of conversation that you can have. But we're just in such a great time and a great place in this city to be doing that. And we're happy to share this city with you and Kawani and the team. Yeah. Really, this team is like probably some of the biggest chunk of our fan base, so we were happy to.
Very true.
That's awesome. In here.
Our stickers in your bathroom.
And it's great. I love it. So I went back in. One of my favorite things is going back to Connecticut and coming back, and one of the first things I do is go in the men's room, and I just see like the growth of the sticker walls.
Yes.
So I could even try. I took a photo of yours.
Hell yeah! Oh, that's awesome.
What a great sticker. But that is it's like the first thing I do. I kind of check in, and I go into the bathroom. I open the door, and I'm like, wow, the sticker wall is growing. Good.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool, man. Yeah. We really appreciate like your whole team. It's like, as you said, a lot of them are big fans of ours and have nothing but great words to say about your concept, about you as a owner. Man, dude, I'm having eaten here only once so far. You blew my daughter's mind with everything she ate.
Yeah.
And
how old's your daughter?
She's 13.
Awesome.
And she is, you can read on her face what she thinks about food. Ever since she was a baby. Like, it'd be like, when she was 2, she'd put something in her mouth and she'd think about it. And so when I see her, like, eat something and her eyes, like, light up, like, her whole face, I'm just like, we're at the right place.
That's it. It's why, again, it's like, why come to work for 10 hours a day or whatever it is if you're not going to care about stuff like that, And I feel like we have a kitchen staff here led by Jared Russell that believes in that. Like Jared wants the kitchen and to perform at a high level. Yeah. He's not only has that sort of ethos, that messaging, but he builds a team that then buys into that too. And then Christina Hogue here in our front of the house, right, and Christina came in a really tough time because we were transitioning from management. And that management, the prior management, which was great, Allison, I loved Allison, but we lost some of our key front of the house employees through the transition. So not only did Christina have to come and take on a very busy restaurant, she'd take on a very busy restaurant missing some really key people or folks that like had kind of laid a foundation here before.
Right.
So not only like how do I figure out this job, how to learn Japanese food and cuisine and so on and so forth, Bill's mentality, blah. And then on top of it, like rebuild a team and a staff. Mm-hmm. And I just, I think like, and that is the industry, right? There's constant ups and downs. And the trick is like, how do you minimize the sort of, the obstruction to the customer, right? Or how do you minimize like whatever we're going through every day, because it's not easy. Every day is a conversation about something HR related, a team member, somebody wants this, maybe someone's moving on. There's, it's a potentially a transient, organization or industry. So we just have to sort of like, there's no excuses.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to do it, And when it works, and when someone's 13-year-old daughter comes in and like she's excited about it, and now you're excited, like that's it. We're good. Like we did it. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of want to just to wrap it up here. I kind of want to we always get so caught up in everything else that we're talking about that we I want to leave a little room for you to kind of sort of roll the red carpet for the space. And if there's any like particular thing that you want to say to people who do come here or are thinking about coming here or sort of anything like that, to just plug yourself here
right on
in the space.
Yeah, I love it. I love the building. I felt like we got so lucky finding the old low-hi firehouse.
Yes.
My understanding, it was kind of painted like a taupey white for many years, and that's why people kind of didn't really recognize it. And when our landlord took it and pinned the bricks and brought it back to its original form, it just jumped out at me. I take such pride and pleasure in sourcing and finding the artwork and the tchotchkes, if you would, throughout the room. They're about as authentic as I can get them. I have been able to create relationships on places like Etsy with folks in Tokyo or Kyoto or Shibuya, and I have a few different people now that I will send a message and saying, I need more artwork, or I need some posters, and they have these shops. So it's like the world is amazing. Like I'm now literally connected to like a shop owner in Tokyo. So what I love so much about the Kawani concept is the visual sort of overload, the aesthetic. I think it just feels great. There's a lot of details in the room, and I'm obviously talking from a design standpoint. There's just a lot of little things that sort of make you forget like where you are for a moment and kind of let you just transport. The food is, to me, is fun. It's so different than when I opened Kawani. Kawani 11 years ago when we opened the original was just because I needed to challenge myself. I was being called the farm to fork chef, and it was driving me a little crazy, and I felt like I love this food, but like how many different asparagus dishes can I do, and then the way I changed my menus constantly, and this little space became available, and I was like, it was an old Chinese takeout restaurant, and I just said, you know what, I'm gonna stick with this. I'm gonna do something Asian. I flew to Japan for just short of a month with some friends and my brother, and I saw the izakaya. Osaka was our first stop, and I probably had never seen an izakaya, like a real one, before that. As soon as I walked in, I'm like, this is what we're doing. The wood walls and like the bar and like the beer and the noise and like the food was just like salty and kind of cool and easy and unpretentious. Right. But Kawani, when it opened, was all chefy. It was like fucking lots of tweezers and stuff. And I think like we put edamame on the menu and everything changed, and like it started to translate. Like people were like, this makes sense. I think I even told you guys the first Kawani, the whole menu was in Japanese, like English word Japanese, and on the back we had a glossary. Right. It's the most affected asshole thing ever somebody can do. Like that's, again, I still have like moments of being a shithead, but Kawani has just been like this constant evolution over 11 years, which is how I want our restaurants to be. I always want them to grow, and it's so much about the people that are in the room, the space, and the food. Like I said, is everything we do here is with some sort of the best understanding we have of the tradition or the culture in which that food's coming from. But I do use it, and I stand by this. I've gotten a lot of messages over the years of cultural appropriation and just white guy doing cuisine. Listen, I get that. I understand that. I think. I don't, but I do. I'm sensitive to it, I should say. But I promise you that I do my research. Fortunately, But unfortunately for what I do, I grew up in a house of hardworking parents. They fed us. But there wasn't a huge food culture. We had cold cuts every Saturday. That was like the thing that I could lean on. My mother would make sauce on Sunday. My Irish mother would make, my Italian grandmother sauce on Sunday. But there was no story to our food, no history. I'm envious of that. Totally. So I dive in and I want to learn. And I absolutely, as much as I love Italian, going to Spain, fucking the Asian cuisine, the cuisine of all the Asias is just fucking spectacular and so insane. And you could just go down millions of little rabbit holes on learning something. It's just right. Yeah. And then I love that. And I'll never be a part of it. That'll never be my history or who I am or my culture. But I feel like as an artist, as somebody that is a chef, that my obligation is to bring new things to people, creative, I lean into this, So our food is very much the way I cook, but we really use techniques and ingredients that you'd find in more Asian restaurants. But I also I think the beautiful thing of Kawani is don't get caught up in what you think it's supposed to be. Meaning, back in, I'm hoping to bring it here, we're working on it, but back in Westport, we just put a katsu burger on. It's literally a deep fried, grass-fed fucking burger.
Hell yeah.
That doesn't exist. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's delicious, it's just fun stuff. We're having fun with food because the ingredients that are now available to us, it's I went from olive oil, garlic, tomatoes, asparagus to just this enormous index and inventory of ingredients now, right? And I don't care. You go to a French restaurant, they got dashi on the menu using fucking kombu, This food is just the ingredients available to us through this type Asian cooking just makes food so much better, And so my feeling with Kawani is come in, I don't want to be too serious. I want it to be fun. I want you to be able to talk loud. I want the music to be loud. I want the lights to be dark. I want the food to be salty, the drinks to be strong,
Yeah.
And hopefully, when you walk out, you're the perception of value is greater than what you expected.
Right.
And but just don't. We've had people come in, or I love talking to people about Kawani. Oh, I love sushi so much. And I'm we don't have sushi.
That's not what we do.
But that is just the general next thing for the American person, because that's how it's been presented to us forever, right?
Every single time.
It's
Japanese is
sushi. It's sushi rolls, and that's great. Oh my God, I have such a place in my heart for fucking awesome sushi rolls. It was either soft or tamaki den last night. We just, but we just cook, and we have fun with it, and I really and I think more and more when I get hyper focused on the food, it's about making it, when I use the word fun loosely, but don't be serious. Just keep creating things. So that's, to me, that's what Kawani is. Yeah, that's Kawani. It's
there
just,
we go.
Hopefully we live up to that.
That's a wrap on this episode of Who the Fuck Closed Last Night. Massive, massive shout out to Bill Taibe from Kawani for the good vibes and great stories. But now we have to close up shop. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in.